Just give me 1 second. All right, so good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for attending our program that's going to be discussing interning and clerking at the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. We are so excited to host this program and feature our two judges, Judge Cintron and Judge Satten, as well as two of our phenomenal FERC attorneys, Brandon Flick and Sharli Silva. So let me get started by introducing our amazing panelists. So I would first like to introduce the Honorable Carmen Cintron. She is the Chief Administrative Law Judge that was appointed to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission in December 1999. Prior to joining the FERC, Judge Cintron was the Hearing Officer Chief of the Atlanta North Office of Hearing and Appeals for the Social Security Administration. She was an attorney at the FCC for 14 years, and for 12 of those years, she served in the FCC's Common Carrier Bureau. Judge Cintron also has worked as a trial attorney for the Puerto Rico Justice Department in the Federal Litigation Division, and she has also worked in the Puerto Rico House of Representatives as a legal advisor to the Judiciary Committee on Civil Law. She graduated magna cum laude with a bachelor's degree in business administration and a cum laude Juris Doctor degree, both from the University of Puerto Rico. She was the recipient of the Resmill Award for the highest cumulative average in criminal law. While in law school, she was an intern in the U.S. Attorney's Office in San Juan, Puerto Rico, and she also worked in the clerk's office in the United States Federal District Court for Puerto Rico, implementing the Speedy Trial Act for both Puerto Rico and St. Thomas Federal District Courts. Please, with me, please welcome the Honorable Carmen Cintron.
Thank you. I apologize for the lightning. Usually my light is better, but I think we're about to get storms here, so my apologies. Thank you for having us. I am so delighted to be able to introduce FERC and especially our office to all of you. I do not know how familiar you are with our agency, but the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission deals with energy matters, dealing in interstate issues, not intrastate, but we regulate a lot of the utilities that serve you as retail customers. But the reason we wanted to connect with you is to, number one, make you aware of our agency, and number two, make you aware of our office. We hire a number of law clerks every 2 years, and to let you know that we are one of the best places to work in the federal government. Hint, hint. And that's based on the employee surveys that are carried out every year by the Office of Personnel Management. So I would like to let you know that we love to have a very robust, diverse applicant pool. So please feel free to reach out to us anytime when you finish law school, especially before you finish law school, because our hiring cycle is every 2 years. So with that, I just wanted to introduce the people here with me and to show you and to prove to you that we not only do we hire people, but we also promote them. So with me today is Sharli Silva, who was one of our former law clerks. Andrew Satten was one of our former law clerks, and Brandon right now is my right-hand person. Andrew is my deputy. So you can see the career path that they had started in our agency, went outside, stayed in our office, and have been promoted through the ranks. So that speaks very highly of our agency. So with that, then I don't know how long I have to speak, but I'll yield the floor to other people, and I'm free. I would love for you to ask me questions and to interrogate me. I am at your mercy and at your beck and call. And I believe you're all students, law school students. So I am giving you a free trial of how to interrogate people. So
Thank you. And I would also like to introduce Andrew Satten. So the Honorable Andrew Satten, he currently serves as the Deputy Chief Administrative Law Judge. He has served as an Administrative Law Judge since 2019. He joined FERC in 2012, serving as an attorney advisor, and then later the supervisory attorney advisor in the Office of Administrative Law Judges. And there he managed the office's staff of attorney advisors, law clerks, hink, wink, wink, the energy industry analysis and legal interns. And since 2014, he has been a member of the part-time faculty at the George Washington University Law School, teaching a course on energy and environmental law scholarship as a professional lecturer in law. He is a graduate of the George Washington University Law School, where he served as the senior managing editor of the George Washington Journal of Energy and Environmental Law. And he also earned his undergraduate degree from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill.
Yeah, thank you so much for that introduction and for having us, the opportunity to talk about clerking at FERC. Consistent with Judge Cintron's comments, I'm kind of like the law clerk who never left. And I think that speaks to, it's a great place to work. The commission, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission is a great place. And I'm obviously a big proponent of our office. Energy law in general, I think it's a great practice area. The clerkship that we offer is in a lot of ways just a typical judicial clerkship, but with this energy law focus, because that's what we do. And I think that's a really great combo, because I think clerkships are great. And anyone who's considering going into the field of energy law, I'm a big advocate of it. It's just a very interesting space to practice in. So I'll keep my opening remarks to that. But again, just thank you for the opportunity to be here today, and looking forward to answering everyone's questions and having a good discussion.
All right, I'm so happy that everyone is super excited. So the way this is going to work is I'm going to ask you all a few questions just about FERC, what it's like clerking and interning at the FERC, and then I'm going to hand it over to our attendees. If they would like to ask any questions, either they can take themselves off of mute or with their camera on or off, entirely up to them, or they can personally message their questions to me and I will ask it. So getting started, can you all give a background on what the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission does?
I'll go first, and then Andrew, Brandon, and Charlie can clear up all the mistakes I made. Okay, so we regulate interstate energy issues. We regulate the companies, and most importantly, we regulate the rates that they charge to each other. So we regulate oil, gas, and when I'm talking about oil, we're talking about pipelines. When we're talking about gas, we're talking about gas pipelines. We regulate, believe it or not, some dams, hydropower, and we regulate electricity. We have something to do with the siting, even though that's all siting of the towers, even though that's a state matter. And with that, I'll let other people talk.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. You often hear the phrase, FERC is a creature of statute. Everything we do is authorized by some specific statutes. And the key ones that we work with are the Federal Power Act, the Natural Gas Act, and the Interstate Commerce Act. And those correspond to our electric case proceedings, our natural gas pipeline proceedings, and our oil pipeline proceedings. Those are kind of the bread and butter of our specific office. And by specific office, I'm referring to the Office of Administrative Law Judges. We handle a lot of those cases. The commission kind of has a expanded portfolio of matters, as Judge Cintron was alluding to. We also do hydroelectric proceedings and certification proceedings, which relate to building certain infrastructure. But the key areas for our office is electric, natural gas, oil, and then there's certain jurisdictional elements to it. For example, at the state level, there are state public service commissions. So here in DC, where I live, there's a DC Public Service Commission, and that organization is going to directly regulate the retail rates that you would pay on your monthly utility bill. We're a little bit more upstream, I like to think about it, and kind of regulate certain wholesale transactions, The rates for transmission of energy in interstate commerce, kind of drawing on that constitutional law a little bit that I know you all are familiar with. So that's kind of just a general overview of what the commission does and our office.
Hi, everybody. So I'll touch on one of the things that our agency regulates that you have all heard of. Everyone has heard of Enron, right? One of the things that FERC does is they ensure that companies and even individual traders within those companies don't manipulate the markets. When I'm saying don't manipulate the markets, what am I talking about? So the electricity market, the electricity actually has power marketers, like people who trade almost like in the stock market, right? Every day they can buy low, sell high. They're trading transmission rights and electricity transmission rights on transmission lines. They're trading the cost of power by the hour. Same thing in like the gas world. So one of the authorities that FERC has, and that's their enforcement powers, is to go after these companies. So when you hear about traders manipulating the markets, you know, making trades that don't make any money, and the commission's like, why would you make a trade that doesn't make any money? It's like you buying stock or making a losing trade, right? You buy stock and you're not making any money. That's kind of considered a questionable practice. So one of the powers that our agency has is to go after or to investigate questionable marketing practices. And the thing about our agency is we can find individuals and companies that violate our market manipulation rules $1 million every day, every time they make a trade. So if you make 100 trades in one day, FERC has the ability to fine you $100 million. To me, that's one of the most interesting things that our agency does. I think it's one of the most relatable things because everyone knows, you know, about Enron. How does that relate to our office? Well, on occasion, we get some of these enforcement cases. So where the Office of Enforcement, which is a separate office from ours within FERC, when they allege wrongdoing by a company or a trader, sometimes those cases will come to hearing and they'll be held before an administrative law judge such as Judge Satten or Judge Cintron or any number of our other 12 judges. And then they will actually hold a hearing and they will take evidence on those issues. So that's another thing our agency does. And I like to mention that because it's like the most relatable thing. Everyone knows what Enron is. Everyone knows about Enron, right?
Brandon, do you have any comments or?
Yeah, sure. No, I think Charlie took a lot of the words out of my mouth because I usually like to pitch from the from that angle. But I mean, the way I like to think about it is it's everything that everyone said is true. We do have a few governing statutes, and on their face, it's really what are the rates of the energy companies that we engage with. But the thing that really brought me around to FERC when I was in a lot of the shoes that you all are in is you really utilize every branch of law that you learn in law school. I mean, from corporate law to tax law, financial regulation. Our office deals with evidence quite frequently. And you get participants in your hearings that may not typically first strike you as, oh, that's an energy company, we regulate them. We're dealing with a case where airlines are participants before us, and we're dealing, Tesla is a fun company that comes before us sometimes. So it's surprising because since we regulate not only the rates, but the terms and conditions of those rates, you'd be vastly surprised about all of the broad panoply of issues that kind of come before us. We're really probably the most active federal court that is in an administrative agency. So I think that's fair enough to say.
Thank you all so much for that really informative background of your commission. So now that our audience members have had a quick introduction to it, getting more specific, how would you all say that how would you all categorize the work that you all do for one? And then secondly, how would you potentially explain how your work directly affects non-white communities, specifically Black communities? I'll let that question marinate for a little bit, and then whoever would like to answer first.
I'm sorry, you got cut off and I did not hear the last part of your question. What was it? You said how the work we do impacts what kind of communities?
Oh, non-white communities, specifically
Non-white.
Black, Indigenous, and other communities.
I'll take the first stab at it if the other persons don't mind. Everything the government does impacts communities, and we have to be mindful of how they are impacted, but everybody is impacted. In terms of what we do, it has a big impact in all sorts of communities. And sometimes not to minimize the importance of the question, but I always, when I'm teaching young people about what we do, one of the things I say, one of the analogies I use is, have you ever tried to check out in a grocery store with no lights on? So what we do bears an impact on your everyday life. So, you know, banks don't run if you don't have lights. The internet doesn't run if you don't have lights. So our impacts are pervasive, and they are all encompassing, as minute as people that are located close to an energy dam have all sorts of potential consequences to where these facilities are located. People that have towers, electric towers close to them have all sorts of impacts from those antenna towers. Do we regulate where the antennas go? No, but tangentially we do, because we authorize the pipelines to go through certain areas. So I hope I captured your question, and I don't have anything else to say at the moment.
Yeah, and I'll follow that up with in terms of like current initiatives that the commission is pursuing. It very recently kicked off an initiative with establishing an Office of Public Participation. And the general concept is you get better regulation that reflects the diversity, the great diversity of our country, when you have an agency, a commission that has an engaged public and makes it and facilitates engagement by that public to participate. And so that's, if you go to like FERC.gov on our website, one of the leading banners, there's a lot of content devoted to this new Office of Public Participation. And so the commission certainly is very active in issues of equity and participation and diversity. And there's a lot of materials about that. I'd also add a lot of what our office does and the commission does is rate regulation. So we're talking about financial regulation, and inherent in that is there's a lot of equity issues involved in setting rates. I mean, it has ramifications for who is billed for what. And so that rate regulation piece has a lot of equity issues embedded in it. And I think, that makes it particularly interesting.
So I'm going to add to what both Judge Cintron and Judge Satten said. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're here, which is we have these far-reaching and very broad reaching issues, like the decisions that come out of our office impact the decisions that the commission makes, which has a broader impact on the communities. And when you talk about how does that impact non-white communities, well, we need people thinking about that. The more diverse our FERC attorneys are, the more they're going to be thinking about how these things trickle down. Earlier in the conversation, we talked about how we regulate interstate electricity oil pipelines, gas pipelines, that's kind of that's above where the retail ratepayers are. That's before it gets to your, your local utility. So sometimes people aren't even thinking that far ahead. And that's why we want more diverse practitioners, because diverse practitioners would think, and I'll admit, I hadn't really thought about, how all of this trickles down once it leaves our realm and goes into, the state realm and the local distribution of retail realm, which is where you guys are paying your bills. We need people thinking about that. Like, how do, citing regulations, how do rate cases impact diverse communities? And that's why we're here, just to get people thinking about it. That's it. Sorry, I thought I had another thought, but I didn't.
I'll just go and add, based on what Sharli said, to give kind of a tangible example. One of the statutes that a lot of our cases involve is the Federal Power Act. And kind of like the money line from that statute is there's a charge that our rates are, quote, just and reasonable, end quote. Now, what does that mean exactly, right? Just and reasonable is a pretty ambiguous statement in and of itself, but there's this whole body of precedent on all sorts of issues that we interpret and have to assess in terms of what is a just and reasonable result. And there certainly are, in this field where it's very dynamic and evolving, a lot of interesting issues when it comes to, what is a just and reasonable result in an equity context, in an environmental justice context. And so I think it's just kind of to add on it. It's a very interesting practice area, given, that overarching just and reasonable mandate that we operate under.
Thank you all so much for those really good answers. So now moving into the focus of interning and clerking, how would you all describe the differences between a FERC intern versus a FERC clerk?
Do you guys want me to go first? Okay, so interns, they have more of an opportunity to work with several judges as opposed to one. When law clerks come in, we assign them to one or two judges, and typically for the duration of their 2-year clerkship, they work with that one judge or those two judges that they're assigned to. In contrast, interns kind of work with whatever judge has a need during the duration of their internship. So one judge might have you draft a memo, doing some legal research. Another judge might need assistance drafting testimony. Another judge might be in the midst of a controversial hearing or settlement, and you're going to assist on that. So you do have more of an opportunity as an intern to work with several judges. But the difference between that and a law clerk is also law clerks often they work more closely with the judges. So that also has a different type of benefit, right? You really get to learn the style of, if you're focused on one or two judges, you really get to learn their individual styles. The other thing is that typically as a law clerk, you get more substantive work. So you might have the opportunity to work on a portion of an ID, and a couple of issues on that ID, and actually get to write it and dive into the testimony, dive into,
I think Sharli froze.
So you might get a more substantive.
Sharli,
can you guys hear me?
For about 30 seconds.
Oh no, can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, everyone can hear you now.
Sorry, I've been having the worst internet issues. Where did I leave off? Did you hear that law clerks will have a more substantive experience and really to understand the way their own judges think, the judges they're assigned think? Did you guys hear that?
Oh, that cut out. So if you
okay,
can do sentences before then, that'd be perfect.
Sorry, guys. So I will contrast that. So interns get to work with several judges, get to kind of have an experience learning about the different expectations and preferences of different judges. In contrast, law clerks get 2 years to really dive in and understand the substance of the cases that they're working on. Interns are typically only with us maybe three months total, right? So that's maybe a summer or a winter or fall semester or spring or summer, spring or fall semester. Oh my God, it's been so long since I've been in school. I can't remember the semesters. In contrast, law clerks get to work on initial decisions. They can draft a portion of an initial decision, a couple of issues in the initial decision. Law clerks really get to see hearings from the beginning to the end, right? Our hearings sometimes take a couple years to go from the very beginning when their judge is designated as the presiding judge on that, and then you have testimony coming in, you have discovery issues. So the judge gets to see, the law clerk gets to see how their judges handle motions to compel on discovery issues. They get to see how their judge thinks through writing an initial decision. That's kind of awesome. They get to work with their judge on an initial decision. They get to see multiple settlements. They get to see the settlements from beginning to end. So whereas an intern, which is a great experience, will get more of a snapshot, a law clerk really gets to watch, I'll say like, the intern gets a great preview, right? In those 3 months, the intern gets a great preview. They know what the movie is about, but the law clerk gets to watch the whole movie from beginning to end.
And if I may add, I just wanted to say too is, when I was in law school, I interned at a couple different agencies, and to sort of what sets FERC apart in that respect too is it's frankly no coincidence that often we do have law clerks who were previously interns, which is a nice thing that FERC that we tend to do, and we really treat our program in a way that allows people to really learn and work closely with everyone that you would work closely with should you be interested in the clerking program. So just wanted to add that addendum and pitch, if you will.
Judge Cintron or Judge Satten, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, the agency hires interns throughout the year while you're in law school, summers and during the year. There's also student employees. So there's a number of opportunities to get into the agency. And as Brandon pointed out, an internship is a very good tool for you to get your foot in the door and then move on to other offices and stay in the agency. So we have a very robust program of interns and a very robust program of interns staying. We had an intern last summer who this summer is now working in the chairman's office. So we also had an intern 2 summers ago who is now working in one of our offices. So we have a pretty good rate of keeping interns as full-time employees.
Wonderful. So how would you all contrast clerking or interning at FERC versus clerking or interning at, let's say, a United States District Court or Court of Appeals?
So I can start with that one. In a lot of ways, it's similar because a clerkship involves the core skills of legal research and analysis, writing, counseling a judge. So there's a lot of similarities. The biggest difference is we are very specialized. And so in those other courts, you're going to have a lot more variety of matters that you're staffing. We do energy regulation. Now, what I'm going to pitch and try to sell you all on is that that's a really good thing in terms of having a clerkship or an internship. Because we are so specialized, it's an opportunity to really develop specific skills that really put you on a track to be an energy law practitioner, which I'm into specialization. I like to, really have a focus, and you staked out your practice space and you get really good at it. It's great from a job security perspective. With energy law, because it's specialized, no one really, for the most part, like dabbles in energy law. If you do energy law, like you're kind of like in it because it's so technical and specialized. And so that's, I think, one of the reasons why the internship and the clerkship are such great opportunities. It's just a really great platform to develop this specific skill set that, a very high percentage of our interns and clerks end up just practicing for the next decades and decades in this area, and it just really sets you on that track. And then I think it's a great track to be on.
I agree. And, one of the distinctions with federal courts, for instance, is federal judges deal with all sorts of things. Granted, sometimes they're assigned to specific areas, like there's family court judges, et cetera, et cetera. So that is not that different, but we are very limited in terms of what we do. However, what we do is beautiful in terms of the law. If you like constitutional law, if you like administrative law, if you like contracts, we have to deal on an almost constant basis. And Brandon is my law clerk, so Brandon can attest to the fact that recently we've had all sorts of things thrown at us, that we've had to be doing research and really going deep into all the areas of the law that we do not normally handle. So I would say to you that energy law, not only is it beautiful, but it makes a difference. And if you want to work for the government and make a difference, I think this is one of the agencies where you can really make a difference. Can other agencies say the same thing? Maybe. I don't know. My previous experience was at the FCC. Yes, we made a difference, but it wasn't as encompassing as the difference we're making at FERC. I worked at Social Security. Do we make a difference? Yeah. My last work at Social Security was deciding whether people had disabilities or not, but that was a case-specific decision. The decisions we make in the agency encompass the whole United States. Sharli alluded to Enron. I was one of the lucky judges that had a number of cases dealing with the California energy crisis, and talk about things that impact an industry in very different ways. So it's unbelievable.
I'm just going to add another note about what I think sets our clerkship apart. And especially if you're interested in energy law or even litigation, one of the best things about our clerkship is that you really get to see the parties. You get to see, all these big corner office partners, the state regulators, pretty much every, and every level of the energy law practice. You get to see these practitioners litigate cases. You get to see how they argue in front of judges. You get to see the quality of their writing, right? You get to see the quality of their settlement negotiation skills. You get to basically interview all of these people right before you start interviewing. So before you, and I was a law clerk, and this is what I did. I was looking at who I wanted to work for. If there was a litigator who I thought was excellent, oh, they were on my radar. They were definitely on my radar. So you really get a chance to see who it is you will be working for in 2 years. And the other nice part about a clerkship with us is that we all know you're leaving in 2 years. So when you get ready to start looking for a job, you can call us up and say, hey, I'm thinking about working for this firm or working for this person or going to this state commission. What have you heard about them? What do you know about them? Can you make a call for me? Can you give me a letter of recommendation? You don't have to hide when you go on your interviews. We see you in your business suit, we give you a high five and say good luck. To me, that is, when I was interviewing, I had a judge saw me in the elevator and said, you look really nice today. You got an interview? And I said, yes, I do. And they said, oh, give them my name. I'll give you a good letter of recommendation. Or tell them to call me. Like, to me, that is priceless. You can't beat that.
think that's absolutely wonderful. And you're all just giving so many good tidbits. Brandon, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say, and one other plus about our internship and law clerk programs that distinguishes us is we have really nice supervisors, so that supervise the interns and law clerks. So I'm just teasing. I supervise, and so does Charlie here.
So, oh, Attorney Satten, sorry, Judge Satten, you're muted.
Thanks for looking out for me there. I just wanted to throw one more kind of sales pitch out there that I think, and this applies for all clerkships, but I think it's worth mentioning. It's a great opportunity to learn, and it's also very kind of very rewarding, because as a clerk and as our office, we get to follow the law, right? We get these proceedings, and ultimately our client, really, when you get down to it, is kind of like the American people. We're there to provide like a forum that these disputes can be litigated in and resolved, but we're not representing any particular client. We don't have a client who we're trying to advocate for this result, which that's a fun part of practicing law too, but it's pretty unique to just our mandate is, hey, interpret this case law and interpret this commission decision, interpret this precedent, and what is the answer? What is the result? And that's a very unique kind of practice environment relative to what a lot of other lawyers find themselves engaged in. So I like to kind of throw that out there, because we are there and we have an independent, unbiased evaluation of the law. And we have our facts. You apply the law to the facts and render decisions like that. It's like kind of like the basics of what law school is all about. And we do that in practice as a profession.
Thank you. So this is going to be my final question before I hand it off to our audience members to ask any questions that they may have. So to demystify the process, can you all discuss what you're looking for in someone's resume, someone's cover letter? How do they signify to you that they are a diverse candidate? And how do you know if someone is a right fit to serve as an intern or a clerk?
I can start with so there's a lot of pieces to what we're looking for. One of the things that we're interested in is a demonstrated interest in energy regulation, because the field is so specialized. To have candidates who have done some things to indicate, hey, I'm interested in energy regulation. Now, at the same time, we recognize you all are in law school and are just starting out. And so there may not, everyone's trying to figure out what their practice area is going to be. So we recognize that. But to the extent that you have opportunities to take courses that relate to energy law. And that means a lot of different things. For example, like administrative law isn't an energy law specific course, but when we're looking at candidates, if they've taken like administrative law, which is what we practice, that's important. So, the more that you can do coursework, get involved with extracurriculars, get involved with other internships that have some nexus to what we do, that's going to be a good thing. But at the same time, we recognize that you all are law students, and so you're kind of new on this journey.
I also pay attention to, like Judge Satten said, extracurricular activities, course law, courses you've taken in law school, contract, admin law, undergraduate degrees. We are so intense in math And if you are not interested, you don't like math, you don't like business, you don't like any of the above, maybe FERC is not a good fit for you, because in our daily, in our everyday case law, we are dealing with math significantly, engineering, all those areas, that computer science, all those areas, economics, that will be suitable for employment at FERC. Not to say that English majors are not perfect, because we always need our English majors to teach us how to write. We look at a number of things in an applicant. Internships at FERC. One of the last 2 or 3 intern classes, law school classes, law clerk classes previous to the current one, one of the applicants had put up solar panels. She actually worked in a company that installed on rooftop solar panels. And I'm like, okay, I mean, talk about showing an interest in the job. It was the type of thing that you're like, okay, you got it. So that's the type of thing that really piques our interest and puts you above the norm, or above the other candidates.
I'm going to add, we also look for judicial internship experience. Like if you had a summer internship working with a judge, we value that, because we think that gives you a leg up and you understand, what it means to work with a judge, what the day-to-day responsibilities are, and, how to be a good law clerk. You kind of already have a feel for how to do the job. One of the other things is, and my colleagues will know that I'm actually lifting this from our other colleague who is absent, that we look for is emotional intelligence. And when we talk about emotional intelligence, you work with a team. So in our office, you don't only work for a judge, you work for you work with a paralegal. Each judge is assigned a paralegal. You work with some of our management and program analysts to make sure the docket numbers are right. You have to work with the front office. You gotta, work with the court reporting people. So you have to deal with a lot of different personalities. And it really takes emotional intelligence to deal with someone who's great Monday through Thursday, but on Friday they have a bad day. How do you handle that Friday? How do you pick up on Monday, and keep going and repair that relationship? That is also one of the most important things that we look for. I thought I heard the tail end of your question, Simone, is being, how do you signal you're diverse? Do I remember that correctly?
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, so I will tell you, how do you signal you're diverse? If you're a member of BALSA, and I know, because I was a member of BALSA, sometimes you want to put that in, sometimes you don't. I know you wrestle with that. When you apply to our agency, put it on there, because that is a signal. I can tell you when I'm looking, at those resumes, that's one of the signals. That's how I know you're a diverse candidate.
And I'll just add too, I think, when I'm looking at resumes and applications and whatnot, and I think everyone else on the panel here has said something similar, but even if you can just tell us a reason why FERC fits into your story or even fits into your goals, I think that is oftentimes enough. I mean, because I myself am a good example here. I wanted to learn more about the government. I wanted in administrative law generally interested me more. I had energy experience, but not installing solar panels or anything like that. And along with that, I think if there's a way that you can demonstrate sort of your eagerness, but also your curiosity of thinking. And what I mean by that is, if you have a writing sample that, even if, I think being a great writer is phenomenal, but also if your writing sample, for example, looks at a legal problem and really thinks deeply about ways to solve it and different pathways to reach, to reach a goal. That's really the substance of what, our court system does. I mean, we deal with energy, but at the end of the day, the people who have been quite successful with us really are the people who know how to think outside of the box and can just, as Judge Satten has said earlier, really apply facts to law. And if you can, find a way that FERC fits in your story, but then also, give us some information that shows that you've really wrestled with problems, even if it's at, like for me, it was different agencies, or it was on, Capitol Hill, or it was, even things I did before law school that said that I wrestled with problems. I mean, that also goes a long way to, even emotional intelligence, like, like Sharli brought up. And so I hope you all, are eager enough to want to do this too. And I think, just sell yourself well, and I think you'll do great.
And on that note, I'm going to open up to the audience. If you all like to ask any questions, please use the raise hand function. If you like to ask your question verbally, or you can put your message in the chat and I can ask your question for you. Also, FERC will be listed as an employer on our Nabalsa Simplicity. So if you're interested, if you're currently a law student and you're interested in interning, you can apply through there and it will bring you directly to their link. Or if you are a rising 3L and you are looking for a post-grad clerkship, you can also use that same employer posting.
Hey, Simone, is it okay if I say something before we open the floor to questions?
Absolutely.
Few things that I think are very important for you guys to know before, and this might prompt some questions. First of all, I want to talk about, where do law clerks go after they leave? Like we talked about before, it is an amazing clerkship. Where do you go? Where do law clerks go? I'd say about 98% of our law clerks, I'll leave it at 95, go to law firms. The law firms, when it's time for us to release our clerks after 2 years, they're actually calling us and saying, hey, do you have any clerks? I get calls all the time. Hey, my friend's looking for a law clerk. When are your law clerks done? So they go to law firms. Some of them want to stay in the federal government. A lot of our law clerks go to OGC, the Office of the General Counsel. We just had one that went to OAL. That's the Office of Litigation. Those are basically the lawyers that appear before us. They are also at FERC. So great opportunities once you leave our office. Where do they go even after that? I will tell you, I went to a law firm. I was assistant general counsel at a utility in Las Vegas for 4 years, and then I came back home. So Judge Cintron was my judge, and I started out as an intern, actually. The other thing I want to plug, that's the most important thing, is our law clerk applications are due by the end of September. I just put a link to our internship and clerkship hiring opportunities link on our website. Please visit that. But if you don't remember anything else from this chat, besides the fact that our office is awesome and fun to work in, and it is a safe learning environment, remember the deadline is September 30th. Thank you, Simone. I just had to make sure we got all that in and make sure you guys know September 30th is the date.
Of course. Yes, Indigo Brown.
Hi, everyone. I'm Indigo Brown. I'm at Howard Law. And I just had a question kind of out of curiosity. What are some of like the emerging energy issues that you're all seeing with energy regulation, especially given the more focus on the climate crisis and reduction in oil and gas? And how do you expect it to impact the market and rates?
Pipelines and how they affect the environment, both gas and oil, hydro, and how they impact the environment, renewables and how they connect to the grid. There's a lot of new issues that we're dealing with based on renewables.
Yeah, and along those lines, so a lot of renewable resources, particularly wind and solar, are distant from where certain population centers are. kind of the terminology in the industry, you'll hear the term like where the load is. That's kind of where people consume energy. And so a big piece of what FERC regulates is transmission. And there is an effort to make sure that the regulatory environment sufficiently promotes and incentivizes the development of new transmission infrastructure, because you can have all the solar plants and wind plants in the world, but if you don't have any power lines to get the power to where the people are, it's not going to do much good. So, you know, our office, you know, we deal with those issues. You know, we're not a policy making office, like, you know, the commission kind of itself does a lot of that policy pieces, but ultimately these issues related to transmission percolate down to our office, because if, you know, there needs to be, you know, a financial incentive for some of this infrastructure to be built, which ultimately gets down to rate making, which is a lot of the cases that our office handles. So I think, you know, that transmission piece is certainly very important.
Yeah, I'd also add, just to Judge Satten's point, I mean, you know, we've had cases dealing with, you know, battery storage, which is kind of more cutting edge stuff. And then to Judge Satten's point of sort of, you know, everything in the things that our office deal with are often in the context of rates. And, you know, even, you know, you see in the news the fires out west and whatnot. So a lot of that sometimes we have to account for. Our office will, you know, look at you know, the forest management budgets of you know, of utilities and whatnot. So yeah, so we do have some interesting you know, cutting edge stuff that we kind of deal with. So
tree cutting for the pipe for the utilities, for instance, that gets into the cost and what they charge. And believe it or not, I once had a settlement where the fight was about how the utility acted within a nanosecond of lightning striking the lines. And I was sitting there saying, okay, what is a nanosecond? So we get things like that. So there's always things that are new. And as things evolve, we will have to deal with.
Sharli, did you have anything to add?
The only thing I was going to add after all the great things they said is that there's more of a drive to ensure that members of the public have a forum to voice their concerns. And that's why we have the Office of Public Participation. So all their, you know, concerns about how, you know, pipeline projects and such are going to impact the environment or people's land, right? Those are the people who care most, the people who are probably going to actually be on that farmland. There's more of a drive to give them a forum to address those issues, because typically, you know, who's coming before us, these are like larger companies represented by large law firms, and they know how to navigate the process. Whereas, you know, other people who don't have access to the money to pay for all these law firms to, you know, litigate their cases or fight the pipeline certifications, they don't have that avenue. So now there's a drive to make sure that everyone who has a concern that would be addressed by our agency has the means to voice their concerns and be heard.
Thank you for that. I also just want to shout out Indigo, fellow Bison. I graduated from Howard University undergrad. So hey, Bison. And Sharli.
Hello, Bison. How are you guys?
So Howard is literally everywhere. So our next question is from Nairobi Craddock. And her question is, what is the intern deadline for the school year? Also, before we answer that question, we have another Howard alum, Aisha Burwell, and she currently serves as the Mid-Atlantic chair.
Hi, everyone.
So I can repeat the question because I know there was a lot happening just now. So the next question is, what is the intern deadline for the school year? It is currently not listed on the website like the clerkship deadline.
I'm sorry, can we repeat that? What's the, which deadline?
The intern deadline for the school year.
Okay, so, because I had to ask the person who actually runs this, Jeremy Hessler. There's not really a hard deadline for that, but if you want a paid, so we have internships in the spring, summer, and fall, right? There's no real deadline for that. I'd say if you're interested, you should get your applications in as soon as possible for any of those. I think we were about to hire someone for next spring, because they interviewed ahead of time and we thought they were a great candidate. So if you have any interest, I would apply as soon as possible. The only application that actually has a hard deadline are our summer paid internships. And those are, I don't think it has like a static deadline because we have to post those. So if you're interested in a summer internship, we have to post those on USA Jobs. So you should watch USA Jobs for the deadline. And actually, you just gave me a good idea, which is maybe we should update this website once we know when the summer internship deadlines will be each year.
Yeah, and I'll offer in frankness with respect to what Charlie says. If for the intern applications, it is generally true that we solicit we solicit applications on somewhat of a rolling basis, but it's it's helpful if you just give us information of what you'd like to be considered for, whether that be fall, spring, or summer, and we do our best to have a quick communication about where we are in the process. So.
Thank you. Are there any more questions from our audience members? Okay, so I'm going to take that as a no. I would like to truly thank our esteemed panelists, Judge Cintron, Judge Satten, Attorney Flick, and Attorney Silva, and just truly today for representing FERC and really informing our members about all the opportunities from serving as an intern to serving as a clerk and what coming through the FERC would truly do for your career. So I would like to say thank you just so much on behalf of myself and NABALSA, and to all of our audience members. I look forward to seeing you at future NABALSA events.
Thank you for having us. It was a pleasure, and good luck to all of you, and do not undervalue internships. They are important. So go ahead and apply for internships. All right. Thank you, Simone. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for showing up and listening to us. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.